Dr. Chief Dele Momodu, I bow to you and I say, welcome back, sir.
Thank you very much.
When he finishes, I would ask the Vice Chairman of World Igbo Congress to respond to him with appreciation. Dr. Momodu, please.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Good to see you again, sir. Good evening, my elders, my distinguished brothers and sisters. I've been waiting here and I've been listening very quietly, but with keen interest to every speaker. And I must say that I've been thoroughly educated today about the Biafran situation. I've always been a friend of the Igbo people. One of my earliest prayer warriors, we called him Baba Fine Face, while I was growing up in Ife, was our spiritual warrior. He prayed for me every time I was sick. He would pray, he would lay his hands on me. And that was my first contact with any Igbo man. And when he went home for the Biafra, his property was kept intact for him. We even thought we had lost him, but mercifully, he came back and he lived for a long time before he passed on. Now, to what we're doing here today, let me again thank all the members of the World Igbo Congress for this opportunity. I'd attended one of the congresses in Houston, Texas, about 19 years ago. I understand it to be 20 years next year. And I look forward to joining you in Austin, Texas, by the grace of Almighty God. I believe that I should start by thanking a few people for initiating me and inducting me into this association that is stretching our hands from the Southwest to the Southeast and so on and so forth. And I must start with my friend and brother, Chief Femi Fanikayode, who I called last year when I wanted to reach out to Mazin and Bikanu. And from Femi, I'll go to my brother, Mr. Ngozi Odumunko, an amazing soul who was ready to work on the link to Mazi in Ambikano. And I eventually got Mazi in Ambikano, and that interview changed a lot of things for me and for a lot of people, especially in the Southwest, who believed that everything about Biafra was just rabble-rousing, noise-making. But after that educative interview, everything changed. And since then, I've been working very closely with every one possible to make sure that this linkage can continue. So I thank them for that. I would like to ask, what lessons have we learned from what happened in 1967 to 70? I would love to see people answer that on this forum today. How far are we willing and ready to go to have the liberation of those who have been treated as second-class and third-class citizens in Nigeria? Because it is obvious that some people are hell-bent on seeing others as second-class and third-class citizens. How far are we willing and ready to go? 3, how can we achieve our goals? Is it possible to achieve our goals without bloodshed? I put this question to Mazin Nambikanu, and his response was that yes, it is possible if a referendum is allowed. I don't know why a referendum, as we are making a fetish of it in Nigeria, whereby people believe that we should not even attempt it. Those who are calling for a referendum are those who do not want war to break out again because of what happened in the past. So how do we get that referendum going? Then when will the South, and now I'm not talking about Southeast, Southwest, or South, when will the South and Southern people be ready to work together? Because there is this fallacy that the North is a monolithic North. It is not true. The North has so many tribes, just like the South has so many tribes. But the problem is that for as long as some Southerners are ready to be a willing tool, I know that right now some people are already cleaning up, they want to be vice president to a Northern presidential candidate. So how do we deal with that situation where the entire South plus part of the North Central, because I contested to be president of Nigeria, and I know you cannot make it unless you're able to lock down 4 regions out of 6 regions. So there are those who don't believe again in Nigeria. It is their right because they can see that there is no road ahead. Of course, there are also some who believe that we must manage what we have. In the meantime, that while you are cooking the meat of an antelope, you must make do with some groundnuts and popcorns. So I'm a Democrat, so I will give opportunity for both sides. Then the Igbos have been marginalized, and what is responsible for this is the fear that the Igbos are too brilliant, too gifted, too energetic, and they are like the combination of the Japanese, the Chinese, the Korean, and the Indians. And as such, if allowed to thrive, they will be the greatest. They will be the greatest race and tribe on planet Earth. So that jealousy is there. Finally, I think the problem that the Igbo nation must address urgently is the fact that those who are pulling the Igbo down are the same people who call themselves Igbo leaders. You can see that even in the middle of all this crisis, some people are still saying Muhammadu Buhari is the best thing that ever happened to them. People are still crisscrossing and moving from frying pan to fire. So how do we deal with all this? Thank you so much, and God bless you. Now that I've made my own comment, I would love to go straight away and find out if we have Chief Chukwemeka Esefe in the house. I don't know if he's here now.